Hi folks, Beardychiel, a first here. The little baby sock pattern I was asked, that I said I had knitted recently for a friend, I've been asked to write up or to demonstrate. So, 2 sets of baby yarn, a white and a contrast lemon, one 3.75mm circular needle, it's just a set of bamboos, and here we go. Invisible cast on, Judy's invisible cast on, so catch a loop at the front and we're going to go all over the back needle and down through the middle. That's going to give us 1 pair, through the middle, over the back, 2, through the middle, over the back, 3, through the middle, over the back, 4. So that's given us 4 stitches. I'm happy with that. I'm going to just catch the tail end. I've left quite a long tail there, but that's okay. Now, when I do this for myself, I normally just pull out the front needle and I am ready to go. I'm going to start knitting into the back because that's the way I like to work. It gives me the effect that I want. So here we go. So let's knit 1, 2, oh, split the yarn, that was clever. Show how clever you are, John. Split the yarn, 3, 4, spin it round, and again we'll take the back needle back and we'll take out the front needle. And we're going to knit 4 again. Now you'll notice that I've managed to let go of that tail, having knitted that first couple of stitches. It's locked itself in place and it's perfectly fine. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got my basic established invisible cast on there. I'm happy with that. So let's start our increases. Slide that needle in, making sure that I don't pick up and knit with the tail end, which I have done in the past, just because I'm a silly Billy. And we're going to knit 1. Now, it is possible to make one left, make one right here. At either end to keep the symmetry going, but in this baby sock it's so small it doesn't make a massive amount of difference. So I am quite literally just gonna pick it up and knit into the back of the loop. I'm not caring what direction it's twisting in because it's going to be so small as to be almost not seen in this one. Same again, we'll just pick it up there and we will knit into the back of that loop and we'll create the little twist. Oh. And there we go, we've gone up to 6. Flip it round. Same again. Knit 1. We're going to pick up that first loop, knit into the back of the loop, knit 2, and I'm a flicker as you can see. Last stitch, we're going to pick up that loop again and we're going to knit into the back of that loop, and that's going to give us the tail end increase and knit our last stitch. We now have 6 and 6 is 12. Our next round there will be no increases, we only increase every second round. So back to this one, a nice simple 6 stitches. Now I did promise when I said that I would knit this that I would probably try and knit it as a slow TV item and just knit the whole thing in real time, which makes it incredibly boring. So you may find that I decide to take some bits out just to simplify things. I may take out every second round when it's just a straight knit round. But whatever I do, it will appear at the bottom of the window to warn you in advance of what I'm doing. Straight knit on this one. One, two, three, four, 5, 6. Let's do another set of increases. Again, same as last time. Knit 1. Let's just pick up that front loop. Oh, picked it up with the wrong needle, but no matter. Swap them over. Knit through the back of that loop. Knit to the end. And we'll pick up that last loop, and again we're just going to knit into the back of that one. Knit 1, pop it round, other half of the set of increases to finish this round. Knit 1. Now where's that loop? Let's pick it up, there it is. And we're knitting into the back of it, so that's fine. Knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is a slightly slubby yarn. It's got a slight sparkly twist added to it, which is fine. I mean, it's just a baby yarn, it's nothing horrendous. I happen to think once it's knitted up and we swap onto the white, it looks quite nice. I've used this particular lemon to decorate several little projects over the last while. It's just an acrylic, it's nothing special. This time round we've no increases, so we're just knitting. And with 2 increases at 2 per side, we've now got 8 stitches in the front and 8 stitches on the back. So there's the 8 in the front, and now the 8 on the back. Now the good thing about these, because they're for tiny littles, depending whether they're for a boy or a girl, you could do them any colour you wanted. These are the 0 to 3 month size, and to be honest, at that age I like to keep them simple. I like to keep them white with a little bit of lemon, a little bit of pink, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green. I don't tend to go for the bright jewel colours and stuff that I make for newborns. I think they're newborns for such a small amount of time that it's nice to let them have that sort of pristine white, clean, pastel-y baby time. Right, another set of increases. So we'll pick it up and again knit into the back of the loop. Well whipped off the needle there. See, Beardychiel's human just the same as everybody else. I make massive knitting boo-boos, and none of them are insurmountable. Let's just pick that up again. Flip round for knitting into the back of it. Nip along to the end. pick up at the tail end there. So there's now 10 on that one, and very shortly we're going to have 10 on this one. Let's pick it up there to make life easy for myself, and knit into the back. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the one at the beginning I didn't count is 10, so we're now 10 and 10. Back to just the straight knit round. Now, as I say, this is not a long process. These are so tiny, and knitting them in this size needle, they are quite literally just a bit of quick fun. So that's that round. Sorry, pulling that right out of your line of vision there. Now you can see that as I've been working, I have let this start to take shape, and I've popped it out the right way. I happen to know that that side there, where that tail is hanging out, is the beginning. So making sure that's up the way. Now that I've popped it out the right way round, I'm just going to knit this one nice and quickly. Normally when I start, I end up knitting them inside out, and then I just pop them round after 3 or 4 rounds as they start to hold the toe shape. That makes life easy enough for me. I don't think that's going to make life incredibly difficult for anyone. So there's our basic toe. We've got one more increase to do. So let's just leave that tail hanging there to show me where the front is. Front edge. When I sew it in later, I can pull it back through to the other side and it'll be absolutely fine. So, 1. There's my loop. Pick it up, work into the back of it to close that little hole, knit to the last, and again pick up that loop, and I'm just going to work into the back of the loop to close that up. Last stitch. Let's get the increase done on the other side, and this will be the last of our increases. Then we'll have one more lemon round just to finish the toe, and we will be ready to change colour and get on to the instep of our sock. So this is a plain vanilla sock for those of you who are regular sock knitters. The only decoration is this contrast toe and heel. That was the increase again at the beginning. Knitting to the last stitch, and we'll make the last increase. If I'm going too fast, please feel free to pause. Again, pick it up, and knitting into the back of the loop. It's It's going to make very little difference on this little sock. If it's the first time you've done this, using the same increase all the way along is going to be absolutely fine. Let's get our last post increase knit row done. So swap our stitch. Now whether you're knitting this on 2 DPN and DPNs with our DPN for knitting each side, or whether you have chosen to use magic loop like myself, or whether you're working with 2 circulars, it's exactly the same process and it will work perfectly for you. So just a plain knit round to finish this off. Now, knowing how small little feet are, oops, I must have split the yarn slightly there, but that's okay. Allowing for the slubbing that's here, that's not going to show. Even a single strand is going to look as if it's in just where it should be. Yeah, I've got this playing live on my phone as I'm recording it so that I can see what I'm doing from your perspective. So if you see me glancing to the side, that's why. Leave that up the way. And our last set of knit to finish our contrast toe. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For those of you who know me, I'm working out in the conservatory at home. Janet's in the sitting room watching NCIS, which you might hear playing in the background. Conservatory doors sort of half shut, so it won't be too loud. Right, that finishes our toe. Let's turn it round and be ready to go with the next piece. So there we go, 1 toe, 12 stitches on the front, 12 stitches on the back. It's going to need no more than that. We're going to change colours, so let's just trim these down to workable lengths. That initial tail end, don't need any more than that. This one, let's just leave ourselves 2 or 3 inches, and we'll change yarn. Here's just a simple white acrylic. There's nothing special about it. And again, I'm just going to leave the tail ends sticking out at the side, at the front, until I'm finished, and then I will stitch them all in at the one time. So, one loop with the white, and it's just a straight knit round. Nothing special, just hold that tail end to keep a little bit of tension on it. And I can sort out the tension of any little gap or loop that sort of appears there as I'm sewing in that end. It's not going to be a major hassle or hardship. As I say, this is a fun little project. It's something that's going to take possibly an hour. If you're feeling slow, if you're feeling fast, you might do it in 30 minutes. No 2 knitters are going to be the same. Don't feel that you need to be. Right, now okay, again just give that a tug in to snug it up until we've sewn the ends in. So that's the first round of the white done. I'm going to do a second round of the white while you're still here, and then I will edit out to the end of the white, to just before we start the heel, because it's just straight stocking stitch, just nice simple knitting. In fact, I may do two versions. I may do a slow knitting version where I keep blethering in the background as I work the few rows that I need to give me the length of foot that I want. This could be knitted on 3.5mm needles. It makes for a slightly tighter fabric, which if you're trying to slip tiny little soft feet in, I think is just too tight. I'd much rather these were just slightly baggy on the foot for the little one, because there's nothing worse than seeing kids being crammed into things which are too tight. Many years ago, back in the early 1980s, I was manager of a children's shoe shop. In the UK, I worked for a company called Clark's, within a store in Glasgow called Goldberg's Department Store. And I would say that what I learned then, and the videos, Betamax training videos that I was shown back in those days, of the deformities caused by ill-fitting shoes on children as young as 1 and 2 were frightening. Absolutely frightening. Some of the harm that parents did to their kids for nothing other than fashion, I thought was dreadful. Our advice was, until you think they really need shoes to help them to walk, let their feet develop completely naturally. Now, a little bit of stability from a shoe does help with the toddling and walking process. It made a difference for my kids when they were little, but at this stage you don't want anything that's going to put any pressure on those tiny little feet and the tiny little bones that are growing inside those feet. You want them just to be warm and cozy. So to blazes with anything other than function. Now, I'll finish this round. I did find the first pair that I did of these, that the amount of stocking stitch that I needed was not massive, because this little toe itself will probably cover half of a baby's foot. So you're only really looking to have about 8 to 10 rows of stocking stitch before you move on to the heel. So that's not a massive amount. So that's 2. It's boring sitting watching somebody just knitting 8 rounds of stocking stitch on something as little as this. And I know I could whiz through it as quick as possible and try and knit as fast as I possibly can on camera, but what is the point? We can just have a chat along while this is happening. Knitting baby sizes I find absolutely hilarious. I just love them. I love seeing the little shapes develop. I have a thing which, I don't know, it's related to watching my mother and my grandmother knitting for kids in the family over the years. Knitting for friends, knitting for cousins, knitting for overseas relatives. They just always did it. It was just the accepted norm that in the house, within the family, if there were kids, they needed knitwear. Whether the parents saw the perceived need for knitwear, I don't know, but it was just knitted. It was sent to them or handed to them, and it was always accepted graciously. And 9 times out of 10 you would see it at some point on the child in question. Now, whether it was put on just for show to say, look granny, we're wearing your jumper, or whether they chose to wear it, I sometimes wonder. I know that with my own kids, when my mother and my granny knitted for them, they loved what was knitted for them and they volunteered to wear it. We never had to coerce them into wearing things like that until they got to the sort of 6 or 8 year old stage, when what was being knitted for them, for Alistair anyway, was slightly less than fashionable. Little boys at that point in time were desperately going into sweatshirts more than anything else. So that took the novelty value out of the knitwear for him for a little while. Sarah, on the other hand, fashion yarns, easy to knit patterns for little girls always there seemed to be more of them in the go, and it was more acceptable for little fashionable knits and cardies and things to go rattling on to little girls at 7 and 8, and they seemed to enjoy them. I know Sarah did. Right, now if we have a look at this at the end of this round, we have done 4 rows of stocking stitch, and we have something which is just about 2 knuckles long. As I say, possibly another 4 rows and I will have an adequate foot for a newborn. I don't need much more than that. In the pattern, I would say, staying at this width, you could increase the length and use the same pattern up to 6 months quite happily without it becoming too tight, or for the sake of adding 2 stitches, 4 stitches, 2 stitches aside, 4 stitches in total. You'll have a simple sock pattern that will take them through, as I say, well past the 6 month stage. They are cozier than some of the things you can buy. You could stick a little pair of cotton socks under these and you would have, in those 2 layers, something that is going to keep the average little set of toes completely toasty in a pram or a buggy or a stroller or a pushchair, whatever you want to call them. Isn't it funny the names of prams have changed? It was originally the perambulator, and the perambulator became the pram, and the pram became the go chair. When I was little and my brother was little, we had a go chair in the house, and the go chair became the buggy. It's all quite, I find it quite fascinating the way terminology changes with fashion. They all serve the same purpose. In the good old days, you would never have tried to fit a pram into a car. That would have been impossible. I remember the first folding go chair in the house when my sister was little, and unfolding it involved 2 big metal rings and the possibility of losing your fingers, so it was quite a vicious thing to put up and down. Late 60s, early 70s, but it did fit in the back of a car, and she did have a sleep in it. I remember that. Right, I would say these are coming on quite well. Let's finish this round and decide, do we have a foot? I think we'll have another little row count at the end here. I think we're on 5 or 6 rounds of white, and I said a maximum of 10, so you note from the way I talk about these that I create a little bit of flexibility in them. So where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say by the time we add a heel, which is going to be about the same length again onto the back of that, we have a baby's foot. I'm going to be quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to knit just this front side in white, And then we're going to change colour, and we're going to stick a little German short row heel onto the back of this little foot. So just knit across the instep in white. Now I'm not going to disconnect the white ball of wool here because it's a pain having all this extra joining, and it can just sit there unused while we put together this little heel. Okay, so we're going to turn it round, and we're going to be ignoring the white because we're going back to yellow. So we will throw in some yellow here as we start our heel. So let's pick up the yellow. We're going to have a little yellow end to sew in, but that's fine. We'll leave an inch or two. It looks an awful lot, an inch or two of yarn for sewing in purposes on some. Heavens, John, control yourself. And something this small, but here we go. There's one. And we don't want the bump of double thicknesses of yarn showing anywhere, so we'll just hold that while we knit along here. And I'm happy to just have a nice, simple row of lemon up here on the back of my sock. And we're going to turn because we're going to be purling on the way back. So, on the way back, really simple, we're going to slip the first stitch. And we're going to pull it up and over as tight as we can and round to the purl position, and we are going to purl the rest of the row. Okay? Purl the rest of the row. Right along to the end. We're not going to worry about it. Do we need a gusset for a tiny little baby foot? No, we don't. We've left enough leeway in this that it's going to hold itself in place. Now when we get to the last one here, there's the possibility it's going to feel a bit loose, but then we can snug that up just by tugging on the end. Turn it round, and here we go. We're going to start this side's short row. Now, as if to purl, we are going to slip the first stitch, and again we're going to tug up and over to create that little V lift. See it? And it's folding back on itself as we knit the first stitch. And we're going to knit to the end. Remembering not to knit our first, not to knit the last stitch. So we knit along to the end. This is a nice way of putting in this demonstration because it is so short. And there's our first short row turn. So we're going to turn again. Again, slipping purl-wise, tugging up and over and round, purling towards the end. Such a short pattern, this, really. Having it in written form, I hate to think just how small it would be. Leaving the last one unknitted, there's our stretch over. So we turn, and again, slipping purl-wise. This finishes our second set, so tug up and over, and knit. Let's get along to the end. So there are now 2 of those at either end. We're going to keep going until we've got 4 at either end. So purl one number 3, slip purlwise, pull over, nice and tight, purl to the end. Now in this section it is easy for your tension to go a little awry because of the pulling up and over at the end. This last stitch sometimes gets a little tight, but don't worry about it. Right, let's do the third on the knit side. Same as before, yarn to the front, slip purlwise, tug up and over to create that loop, and knit to the turn stitches. 4, 5, there are 3 there, and normally we'd split these things in 3s for sock heels, no different on this one. So let's just do our 4th, tug up and over and round, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, and that gives us the last one on this side. So again, slipping purlwise, tugging up and over, we're going to knit to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've now done all of our short row decreases. It's time to increase again. Now increasing couldn't be any easier. So I want you to watch that we go through both loops showing on top. So tilting that through both loops and turn. Slip, the one we've just knitted purlwise, and we're going to purl to the end. And here's the first one we come across at this end, so we're just going to slip through it and we are going to purl both loops. So you can see that we're going through there. Oh, sorry, split that yarn a little, so let's do that again. And we're going to purl both loops at that side, pop it over, and again we are going to slip that first stitch, and we're going to knit everything else that's here, including the one that we picked up last time, and here we are for our next one, through both loops, knit it, turn, slip that first stitch, purl to the end, and again here's our next short row, which we're going to purl through both loops, we're going to turn it, and as before we're going to slip it, we're going to knit to the end. We are coming pretty close. Look, there's that single thread that I thought I had split earlier. That's terrible. Right, we will sew that in and hide it later. I'm sure no one's going to be incredibly horrendous about it. Please feel free to write in and tell me I'm a terrible man for not taking it out and redoing the video, but let's face it, I'm just a lazy old devil. Right, here we go. Oh no, we're going to slip that first one, silly me, and we're going to purl across. And there are 2 left, so we are going to purl that one. And we are going to turn. Now, this being the last row, once we've done that one, I don't want to turn and come back. I want to go along there and go straight onto the front again. So I am going to drop my yellow yarn there. And I know I still have 1 to go, but for this little baby sock, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to drop that there. I'm going to pick up the white that's been sitting. I'm going to treat it like a piece of stranded work, just for a second. Right, so we're going to slip that one. And I am just going to knit across in white. Here's the last one. I am going to slip it onto the other needle. Here, between the two, I'm going to pick up a loop and I'm going to twist that loop. I'm going to pop it onto that needle as well. And then sliding back in. Did I just twist that the wrong way? John, you're a silly man. That's not what you're needing. Pop that off. Yeah, that way. And then through that loop and the one that you've already passed, we're going to knit through the back of the loop. And that's going to make sure that there is no gap appears between the end of the heel and the instep. Let's go back to the instep and we will just knit across the instep. So I can go straight back onto the white instep. Now here we go, we're getting to this side and you can see we're going to have that hole wanting to appear again, but that's not a problem. The loop between stitches, which is here, we are going to pick up and we're going to pop it onto that side. And that stitch and the one we've just picked up, we're going to knit together. So we're picking one up and taking it off all at the same time. The one we slipped last time and straight onto our heel and across. And that pickup should mean that we don't have any little holes where the heel finishes and the instep starts again. And this is us onto the leg of the little sock. So just give me a second, I'm going to do a couple of rounds here, then we'll pop it all onto the cable and have a look at how this section looks. Now, I find knitting this particular piece quite good fun. There's nothing difficult in it. There's nothing in it which is going to take a massive amount of time. and these are great fun. They are so easy to personalise depending on who you're knitting for. As I said in my last Beardychiel video, when the blue and white ones went on show, my niece, who's expecting a little girl, announced that she wanted these in every colour possible. What she meant was every contrast tone heel colour possible. She did make a point of popping in to see me just to tell me that. And I said, "That's subtle, Megan," and she said, "That's okay, Uncle John, just start knitting." And of course, this is going to be one of the first pairs for Megan and Stephen's new baby, whatever her name turns out to be. I think one more. Let's tuck those in there out of the way. We don't need those loose ends. We can sew them in later, and they will bide their time until then. So we're back onto just our 24 stitches, and we're onto the leg. I reckon 2 or 3 inches long, and then 2 by 1, 2 by 2, 1 by 1 rib on the top, just to pull it in and snug it up against the leg of whatever this little one. The one thing I did say, or I have done with them, is I've made a point of making the legs longer than the average little kiddie sock that you buy commercially, because they are so easy to kick off. And having tried to hunt for odd baby socks in the bottom of a pram when they've been kicked off for the 20th or 30th time that day, having something that's just a wee bit longer, which is just going to hold on to that chubby little calf, stuck under a baby grow or a pair of trousers or whatever, or this will be over a baby grow potentially, is just going to help to keep everything neat and tidy. Not so bad in the summer, I suppose, more in the winter that you're wanting these to make sure they don't fall off. Boy, can I gibber for Britain when I'm doing this. I never thought this would be just the sort of thing to do at a knit along or a knit night. I'm actually going off to join a knitting group this Thursday. I've been invited along by one of its members Thursday morning at 10:30, and I will let you all know how that goes. It should be good fun. The person who invited me is an old family friend who is a massive knitting enthusiast. Again, someone whose grandchildren are wonderfully regaled in various knitwear and sewing projects that she puts together. A very lucky troop they are as well, because she is an incredible knitter and seamstress. She's also, or she was, our peripatetic art teacher in this area for primary schools for a long time, until the authority ran out of money to fund that, and then she went permanently into primary teaching for a while before she retired, which she enjoyed. And now she's enjoying her retirement and spending her time working on things for our grandkids, which we all enjoy doing. As older knitters, you younger guys can play catch up. Knit for your friends, knit for your relatives when they're having kids. Ooh, that was clever, completely split that. Now, if I was wanting to be incredibly sporting, and I was thinking of little feet going into little trainers, God forbid, I might want to stop this here and put a little ankle rib on it and say, there you go, there's your mini sports sock. But I don't think that's particularly appropriate. Let's finish this round and then we will have a good look and see what the finished item or the finished foot is looking like. Now, as I say, from here to the end is relatively straightforward, and I don't expect you to sit through me rattling up the stocking stitch for all of that. So after we've had a wee look at this foot, we will stop for a second and you can see what's happening. Right, so here we go. Pop that in there, pop that in there, and here we have one little sock, nicely completed. And you can see that that side's better because it doesn't have all those bits and pieces of yarn sticking out. Excuse me, I'll just fold that up for a second. Right, there we go. Invisible cast on toe up to that little short row heel. You don't need any more over the instep, and as I say, any little holes are quite well covered. The only thing using this method is you get that one long stitch. That I hope I will tweak as I'm messing around with the ends of bits of yarn here. And you'll see that it does pull down and neaten itself up as you sew the ends in. So I'm going to pause there and I will come back to you at the end of that section of leg and we'll have a look at the finished item. Back in a sec. Well folks, we are back. I have added 20 rows of white stocking stitch in total between the ankle and the rib. I swapped back onto lemon for the rib just because I could, and I'm knitting a 2x1 rib here. In case you're wondering, one of the reasons for pausing was because camera battery was getting low, and I thought, okay, let's just make this nice and simple. Between 8 and 15 rows of rib, depending on what you think is appropriate. You might decide 6 is enough. You just want something that's going to come in a little bit. I've gone for 2x1 rib, as I said, simply because I've got 24 stitches, so it can be 1x1, 2x2, 2x1. It all sits quite nicely. 2x1 I find looks nice. It adds that little bit of tension, but it's not unpleasant, unpleasantly tight. I don't mind wearing a 2x1 myself on my socks. I prefer it to a 2x2 actually, but again, it's whatever you think is appropriate for what you're knitting. I like my patterns to be flexible, to reflect the needs of the individual knitter, and with something as simple as these baby socks, pardon me, burping, why does it need to be anything complex? I'm just going to finish this round, which is going to be round 6 for me, and on round 6 I'm going to call it a day and I'm going to do my bind off. I'll show you the start of the bind off, hopefully before the battery goes. If it dies, I'll have to charge it for an hour. The light's starting to fade, come back under artificial light to finish off, which is not something I want to do, but needs must when the devil drives. Right, let's have a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 rows there. I'm going to be happy with that. Let's just stick a bind off on there. I could make it 10 rows, but I think that'll make it overly long. Right, the bind off I'm going to be using is nice and simple. knit one, knit one, slide back through, knit two together, knit one, knit two together, knit one, slide back through, knit two together through the back of the loop, knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop. You can do this one following exactly the pattern of the rib as well, but in something as little as these socks, I find this is perfectly adequate for what I need. It gives me a relatively loose bind off. It's going to be a little bit wavy and wide at the top. The length of the leg is what we want is important for holding this in place. We don't want to put a lot of tension onto the legs of a little one, as I said before, so this should do its job quite nicely. And hopefully we're going to get to the end of this, whoa, just before this battery dies. If not, we'll stick some photographs on at the end of the video and let you see the finished sock. In fact, I might even knit the other half of the pair and let you see all of it. Onto the other side. It's not a difficult process. Knit one, slip through, knit through two on the back of the loop, knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop, knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop, knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop. We don't have long to go now. Knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop. It's funny how when you get to this stage you want to rush, you want to just see it finished. You want to know that it's done and that everything is sewn in, that that's a finished object. And I have to say, I know you could knit these so quickly, two at a time, but why bother? They're such a dinky, cute little project. Do them one at a time and enjoy each one as you put it together. And as much as I know that the next few sets I'm going to knit are for niece Megan, they might have little bits of pattern added to them, I don't know. They'll probably stay just as vanilla socks, and I will look for other colours to add for contrasts. And I'll probably do some slightly stronger ones as well. Down to the last stitch, here we go. Knit one, knit two together through the back of the loop, and I'm just going to pull that out. Going to leave myself some sewing space. And I'm going to say, until that's sewn in, there we go. One sock completed. Total working time just over an hour, hour and a quarter. And that's me having fun and recording as we go. You might knit that faster at home. I wish you well, and I say from Beardychiel and Beardychiel's Vanilla Baby Sock, cheerio.